of unyielding courage. I'm Kay Miller, host of the Harmony Principle podcast, where I spotlight change makers from around the globe. I guide ambitious moms to restore their natural rhythms so they regain the energy and capacity to hold the lives they've built. I'm honored to be selected as an interviewer for this international summit featuring 100 plus inspiring stories of transformation and rebirth. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Emily Jackson. Emily Jackson is a sales professional, speaker, career transition coach, and author. As an experienced conqueror over self doubt, anxiety, and confusion, Emily helps. Oh boy, sorry. Something popped up on the screen. Emily helps individuals discover their path and their purpose in life. Her ability to self-reflect, pivot, and succeed no matter the adversity is apparent in her diverse career background in industries such as fitness, higher education, aviation, collegiate sports, and the tech industry. Emily has an MBA with an emphasis in entrepreneurship, a master's in sports and recreation administration, and a Bachelor of Arts in organizational leadership. She's an active member in Women of the Channel Leadership Network and a founding member of her company, RF Ideas Inc., Women's ERG. So let's get into this wonderful conversation with Emily. I'm so honored to have a chance to speak with you today. And I'm looking forward to hearing your story of rebirth. This one will definitely move, inspire, and empower you. So let's welcome Emily to the conversation.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be a part of this morning, and I've got my coffee. I'm ready to go.
Mhm.
So I think I'm awake enough for a great conversation. So I can't wait.
Awesome, awesome. Well, let's start at the beginning, Emily. What was life like for you before your transformation? Can
Yeah.
you bring
So
us in?
Yeah, so what I wanted to really talk about today is involving my faith journey and some trials and tribulations I've gone through in my life. And if I were to think back on before this transformation, I was really battling internally with myself. I always grew up in the church. I had a faith-filled life, but I was living outside of that. I had really veered from that path. And I was battling in within myself specifically on the topic of motherhood. I was just so focused on I need to make more money. I need to be more successful. I need to have this in this worldly viewpoint. And I was not focusing on my relationship with God. I was not focusing on the bigger picture, the things that are actually important, because for some reason I had convinced myself that other things were really important. So that motherhood topic, I thought to myself, I don't have time for that. I can't be successful if I'm also throwing that in. That's not what I'm going to be able to do in life. And unfortunately, that caused stress and anxiety, that caused physical symptoms for me, that caused difficulties in relationships. And as you can imagine, just anger within myself, that confusion of who am I or how am I gonna, move forward from this? And that was just a struggle that I just like at one point thought, I can't do this anymore. And I just started praying heavily every day. God, please change my heart. Please change my mind on this because I know I'm not going to change my mind on this. So help me to change my mind.
Mhm. Awesome, awesome. So definitely being in that experience of getting the things to fit in place where you want them to fit in motherhood
Yeah.
and the rest of life. So what was your breaking or turning point there? Was there a major moment or a situation that really forced that change? What happened?
Yeah, I would say it's twofold. From that prayer, I think as anyone could probably see, prayer does work and it does change you. And from that, God put the desire in my heart to have a child. And as soon as He kind of turned on the lights for me, I was a go. I was trying for it. And in that trying to conceive journey, that second turning point was unfortunately difficulty conceiving, and I experienced back-to-back pregnancy losses. And I experienced a lot of anger from that, thinking, God, we did all this work and all this effort to change my mind on this, and now I'm struggling and it's not happening. Why couldn't have this been an easy process after all this work that we've gone through together? And my emotions were just all over the place, and I was definitely in that experience having some just dark moments that, and I'm a not a very emotional person, and I don't really have a lot of ups and downs, but this was bringing me to definitely a breaking point. But from that, he started to transform my mindset and use me for his glory. And that is always amazing that God does that. He takes those moments knowing what we're capable of and far ahead of what we think we're going to be capable of.
Indeed. And so what did that feel like for you? Like you said, the difference of going from not wanting to really do this motherhood thing to really wanting it and then struggling with it. Can you take us into the internal process, like your fears and the healing, the steps that you took to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the biggest thing, if I had to think of one word, it would be confused. I was confused as to why this was happening and why after all this time of this, okay, I'm not going to do it now I'm gung ho, why would this happen after all of that? And it was difficult to understand how to move forward, but then what God did is he put in my heart a fire to share my story. I'm a very reserved person. I'm definitely an introvert naturally, but he said, Emily, I know you're an introvert and you don't like to speak in public, but you're going to do it. And he said, you got to write this story. You got to share this story. And he led me to write my book, The Weight of the World. And oh, you can't see it, The Weight of the World. And that is all about that journey of pregnancy loss, difficulty conceiving, and then how he pulled me out of kind of the depths of despair in that process and just poured into me the desire to share. And that has then grown into me sharing myself in all aspects of life, whether it's in this story or with career transition and how I've navigated different industries. And so, really, that one experience or leading up to that one experience, he almost made me a different person, which is kind of what I asked for, right? And so it's amazing that that was that transformational, and he knew going into it that this was going to lead me to this.
That's so beautiful. And I know that you said that you were relying heavily on your faith, but was there anyone else or any other tools that supported you during your journey?
Yeah, I think community is the biggest thing, whether that's your church community or your network, communities like this, even amongst speakers or women's communities. We are here to support one another. That's what humankind is supposed to be doing, right? And sometimes we forget that because we're all in our own little bubble and we've all got so much going on. But when you step back and you like listen into something like this Rebirth Summit, and you hear these stories, I know that you're going to be connecting with at least one person's story that, oh, that's been me, that's happened to me. And the more that I'm part of this type of event is I understand that. Like, oh, I thought this person came from a totally different background than me. Just we can't be alike. But no, we have shared experiences all over the place and we can learn from each other and we can support one another. So I would say your community is really key. And in that time when I was, getting through that desperation type time from those pregnancy losses, I was talking to more and more women who absolutely have experienced this same thing. And not just women, the men that I was talking to. Oh, yeah, my wife went through this, my daughter went through this, my sister went through this. So it's something that touches most lives. And that could be said for any trial that you're going through. And so when we're talking with other people, it's important that we don't feel alone because we're really never alone.
Yeah, that is so key. And I love how you also touched on how that type of experience doesn't only touch the women that are physically dealing with it, but all of the other people that are dealing with
Yeah,
all the aspects of it in their life, the emotional things, and
right.
having a community to be supportive is really, really key for a lot of things. And we forget that we're all just humans having an experience, aren't we? So,
Absolutely. And we're all doing it for the first time. So
yes, yes, yes. So, where are you now on your journey?
I published my book, and so that, led me to share my story in that way. And as I kind of mentioned, I started speaking and I started to, oh, I think somebody needs to mute.
Yeah, I can't
Um,
mute them.
no worries. Hey, it's technology. So I started to really share my story in all aspects. So, I had a very varied background in my career, as you kind of mentioned in the intro, higher education, coaching, a cheerleading program, fitness, and so on. And now I'm in the tech industry and in a leadership role. And I found a lot of value with sharing that story as well, because there's a lot of people out there that don't know where they should go in their next career step or transition, or maybe they're a mom who is just trying to get back into it after a longer break or whatever that may be. And I felt that need as well. So I feel like this journey has opened me up to not just share my story, but realize that I need to get out of my bubble and help other people. And that has just opened up, honestly, it's taught me a lot too. It's me helping other people teaches me. So it's just been a great journey to of change for me in a lot of different aspects. And as I mentioned, I'm an introvert, but here I am speaking and feeling pretty comfortable doing it. So obviously that took some, trial and error, but I really enjoy it, and I find that it is so fulfilling to be able to help other people. And now I know that that's what God meant for me, that that's something he meant for me to be doing.
Mhm. Nice. Yeah, definitely. And you've gotten very comfortable, it seems, with doing the speaking. So that's great.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
how else are you using your experience to help others? What business, mission, or work are you doing today because of what you've been through? So the speaking, I know you said, and you're doing things with tech. Can you give us a little more details on what else you're doing?
Yeah, yeah. So, outside of my book, I am going to be having a Bible study, and I created a workbook to go along with the book for the Bible study. So it's a 6-week Bible study. So if you or someone you know are experiencing trials, loss, just difficulty, it doesn't have to be specifically to difficulty conceiving or pregnancy loss. I would really suggest for you to check that out. So I'm doing that. I also continue to do these speaking engagements, and I talk on a variety of topics, one like we are today, but also career transition, how vulnerability is not a weakness, but a strength, and how that leads to great leadership. So many different things that I speak on, and then I'm a career transition coach. So, if you are looking for, hey, I don't know my next step in my career, but let's see if I can figure out where I want to go from here. So that process for me is I look back on my career and how I figured out where to go next. And it was all through a self-reflection journey. So just getting to know myself better. And that led me to the different career paths and now to this leadership role. So I've got a lot of things going on, but I love being busy and just continually helping others in different aspects. So.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what message do you have for someone that's still stuck? If someone's listening and they're where you used to be, what do you want to tell them?
I would say just to realize that you're never alone. There's always community that you can find. You have people that will have that shared experience, and ultimately God is in your corner. So you're never alone, even if you feel that you are in a situation. And I would encourage to lean into your community, your faith, to God's word for your next steps in your life. And also remember, gotta throw in that vulnerability piece. Remember that vulnerability is how you grow. That's not a weakness. To be vulnerable and share your story, that's actually a strength, because that's how we help one another. And that's how we get to know who we really are.
Awesome, awesome. So true. So valuable. Thank you so much, Emily, for sharing your heart and your story. Your journey is definitely a beacon of hope, especially for people out there that may be struggling with some of the same things you did and wanting to come closer to who they're supposed to be in this world and shining their light. So this has been another incredible conversation on the Rebirth Summit 2026, Stories of Unyielding Courage. I'm Kay Miller, and it's been an honor to host this interview as part of this global movement for healing and transformation. Stay tuned for more interviews from courageous speakers all around the world. Until next time, this is Rebirth TV signing off.